Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm Steve Lance. More details are out on the raid of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, what we know so far, and how Trump and the GOP are responding. NTD's Iris Tao has more.
The search warrant for the FBI's raid of Donald Trump's home is out. It shows that the former president is being investigated for alleged obstruction of justice, among other violations. Specifically, the warrant cites criminal statutes having to do with the handling of federal documents, defense information, and records and federal investigations. And here's author and attorney David Shostakis giving us his take on it.
It's pretty broad. It also looks like there was some reason, some political reason to cite the statutes that they cited, because one of them, in terms of potential penalties, includes being disqualified from holding an office under the United States.
But while the property receipt says the documents seized include ones labeled as top secret, Trump responded on Friday saying that, quote, it was all declassified and that they didn't have to seize anything. Meanwhile, the House GOP is asking for transparency.
So we are demanding disclosure to this committee. What was the national security basis that was an apparent immediate threat requiring this action opposed to all the other actions that they could have taken?
And amid reports of possible nuclear documents at Trump's home, they say,
was it nuclear? Was it, heck, maybe it was aliens. That's the point. We don't know. We're asking them to tell us.
So before you jump to conclusions, we are asking for the answers and the facts.
And Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is accusing the DOJ and the FBI of targeting Biden's political opponents.
This is the same agency leadership that protected Hillary Clinton, James Comey, and continues to protect Hunter Biden.
What the facts are.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accuses Republicans of
instigating assaults on law enforcement.
And that's as Republican Congressman and former prosecutor Trent Kelly says,
I trusted the men and women that I work with on a daily basis. I do not trust the level of leadership that have politicized these great organizations of American justice.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
A search warrant has been viewed by Politico. They're reporting that the FBI is investigating Donald Trump for potential violation of the Espionage Act and obstruction of justice. This after the FBI removed classified documents from the former president's Florida estate earlier this week. Here to assess, we have member of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Markwayne Mullin. Congressman, as you mentioned, you are a member of the House Intel Committee. You're no stranger to the discussion of nuclear weapons and the implications and things behind them. Even if you were to indulge the current pretext mainstream media has put out there, from unnamed sources, mind you, was it even still an imminent national security threat to justify carrying out a raid of this magnitude?
Well, if you're referring to the supposedly conversation about there was nuclear information here, I want to make it very clear there was no question that the 33,000 emails that was on Secretary Hillary Clinton's personal emails, there was some stuff on there about nuclear posturing and nuclear positions. Remember, there was a lot of classified emails that was sent to her personal email that her server was held in a bathroom. You talk about documents that President Obama took out. There has been a lot of conversations saying that those also had nuclear information on them. But I also want you to keep in mind that all the documents that they're referring to was removed from the White House, supposedly, but it was removed before President Trump left office. So you're talking about 17 or 18 months later, and we're constantly moving and changing our posture on nuclear weapons and if people want to even go say the nuclear code, which is always changing, but there's always repositioning. So what he would have had 18 months ago, I doubt very serious was relevant to today to make it an immediate national security risk.
How concerned are you with the timing of this and the potential timing of what the DOJ has planned currently leading up to the midterm?
Well, we're roughly 9 weeks away from the midterm election. I think that's a concern. You have the Attorney General Garland, who goes out there and says that, you know, we do our job and we try to stay out of politics, but yet he personally said, now keep in mind, he personally said that he authorized the raid going into Mar-a-Lago. Now, this is a guy that President Trump prevented from becoming a Supreme Court justice. He's also a guy that is appointed by President Biden, who more than likely will be running against President Trump in 2 years. So you want to say that there isn't politics in it, but how could there not be politics in it? If he wanted to see that, then maybe he shouldn't have been the one that only had the eyes on it to say that, yeah, you can go in there and raid a former president of the United States' personal home and still not be transparent with the American people. He comes out there and he gives a roughly a 4-minute a statement and takes no questions and leaves. I don't think this looks good at all to the American people, and I'm frustrated just like everybody else because they're not even answering our questions. And I sit on the House Intelligence Committee; they're not even responding to us or coming in and briefing us.
Congressman, there's some polling starting to come in after the raid. Trafalgar Group released one showing the raid is having a tremendous impact on voter enthusiasm among Republicans and independents. Reports out of the Trump orbit are that they're breaking fundraising records right now. What do you think this means?
I think they have motivated the base I guess in a positive way for President Trump, but in a negative way for this country. I was at an event. Or actually walking into an event with over 100 and something people going, you know, obviously for our Senate bid, and right as the news broke. And I'll tell you, the mood of the people, you could see it as they were looking through their devices, to the point where finally I said, listen, for you guys who are wondering what's happening, I explained to them about the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And the mood of the whole place turned from a let's go win in November to a sense of between anger and motivated to make sure that we don't just win November, but that we're going to make sure we take it all the way through 2024. And it's been that way this entire week. Every event I have gone to, people are so frustrated and in awe, actually, because of what has taken place. And not in awe is a good way, but in awe, like, I can't believe that this has actually happened. And the unfortunate thing is the DOJ or the FBI can say whatever they want, that no one's above the law, that that this was done for in the right way and the right reasons. But I think it's very difficult for anybody to think with the past of the FBI and their attitude towards President Trump and anyone associated with him, that this isn't somewhat politically motivated. And I think there's some real questions that need to be answered.
Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen, thank you.
Thank you.
Former President Donald Trump and members of his family were able to watch the FBI's raid of his Mar-a-Lago property via security camera. That's according to his lawyer, Christina Bobb.
It's kind of funny. I think the folks in New York, President Trump and his family, probably had a better view than I did because they had the CCTV that they were able to watch. I was stuck in the parking lot there to, collect paper and answer questions.
Yeah. Cameras were on for most of the FBI search. Bob says agents told Mar-a-Lago staff to turn the cameras off. They initially complied until Trump's lawyers informed them that they were allowed to turn them back on. It's not clear if Trump's team will release the FBI search video to the public. Congressman Troy Niels joins us to discuss the fallout from the FBI raid. He met with the former president shortly after the raid. He also brings us some unique perspective as a former sheriff and law enforcement official. Congressman Troy Niels, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you.
Congressman, you had a chance to meet with former President Trump earlier in the week following the raid. Any key takeaways from your meeting with the former president?
Yes. Had an opportunity to spend, 3 hours or so with him. We had a dinner meeting. There were other members there from the Republican Study Committee, meeting with him, talking about our nation and how this administration is destroying our country in the first 18 months. And I tell you, President Trump was very upbeat. He was very positive. He was not sweating at all. You could see that, yeah, he's disappointed that these Democrats continue to attack him, trying to destroy him. And he's been out of office for 18 months. But I'll tell you, Donald Trump didn't look to be confused or dazed at all. He's a hard charger. He truly understands that the Democrats are out to get him. They've been out to get him with impeachment 1, impeachment 2, the Russia hoax. He understands all of it. And quite honestly, I think the rest of the American people truly understand that these Democrats will do everything they can to keep him off the ballot in 2024.
Congressman Niels, I want to tap into your law enforcement background. You were a sheriff for many years. How have you been processing this from a legal standpoint?
Well, when you think about what does it require, what does it take to get a search warrant for someone's home or car or somewhere else, and by the standard, it's called probable cause. So if you can get a probable cause affidavit and you get a judge to sign it, obviously you then have that authority to go into someone's home and search it for whatever that may be, whatever item or items you receive that warrant for. So I believe that sometimes probable cause can be very, very weak. And what we do know is, the judges out there, when you've been in law enforcement for so many years and you're detectives and you are drawing up search warrants, you find that friendly judge. And I think in this case, they found the friendly judge there with Reinhart in the Southern District. And he, all these guys are big Obama supporters and others, and they got the judge to sign a warrant.
Congressman Troy Niels, thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in an op-ed that the FBI raid on Donald Trump's home is the weaponization of the federal government against a political opponent and the American people. Pompeo was part of a committee that investigated Hillary Clinton's illegal handling of classified documents that she eventually destroyed. He wrote that the FBI did not raid her home. He added that this goes far beyond Trump. It will affect every American. Along with the former president's home being raided earlier in the week, sitting member of Congress Representative Scott Perry was confronted by the FBI and had his personal cell phone confiscated. To tell us about it, we have the congressman here with us now. Congressman Scott Perry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Congressman, your phone obviously has been widely reported by now, was confiscated by the FBI earlier in the week. If you could just give us the latest with regard to this situation.
Well, I have the phone back since I've learned from my attorneys or through my attorneys with the Department of Justice that I am not a target of an investigation, which quite honestly begs the question, then why did they seize my phone? So one of the concerns that, first of all, it's my personal phone, so conversations with my wife, other legislators, constituents, they're all on that phone. And there's a reason that we have a separation of powers. We don't want the executive branch trying to coerce the legislative branch to do anything or to not do anything or vote a certain way or not vote a certain way. And now they'll have, well, first of all, they just imaged the phone. So as I understand it, they didn't search the phone. They just took an image of the phone. So, but if they do, they'll be privy to conversations with other legislators and constituents that are generally private. Constituents call me about their situation on Medicare or Medicaid or just healthcare in general, and they'll tell me things. I mean, it doesn't matter what they tell me. Those conversations, they have some degree of, or at least they have some expectation of privacy, and that all is that's there for a reason. And of course, right now it looks like the DOJ, for maybe the first time in history, is preparing to pierce that veil.
Indeed, it's very concerning. A sitting member of Congress having their cell phone confiscated and imaged, as you would say. I just want to ask you with regard to the raid of the former president's home. We've seen this in the past where a false narrative has been put out there in the preliminary stages, which creates sort of this false pretext, as with the Russia collusion hoax. The eroding of the American people's faith in the FBI, is it justified at this point?
Boy, it sure looks like it from what I understand. And let me set this up. It's my understanding that the president has been working with the National Archives and all the proper authorities regarding documentation. Keep in mind, the president is the classifier of all information. So it's hard to say that the president has taken classified information. If the president says it's not classified, then it's not classified. So the president, as I said, has been working with the authorities. The General Services is who packs up the presidency. So it's not like the president and his family sits on the living room floor and puts a bunch of stuff in boxes before they leave. The General Services does that. They pack the stuff up and they send it to his home, which he invited the authorities to come in and take a look at, which they did come in and take a look at. And he actually has a SCIF, which is a secure area to view documents and have conversations, much like in many governmental facilities that deal with highly classified documentation. He has a SCIF right there on the location. And after the fact, he was asked to put additional safeguards, additional locks on the material, which he did. And then they go ahead and raid his home. It seems to me, just like in my case, where they could have called our attorneys, they could have called the president's attorneys, and I'm sure he would have been happy to let them see whatever they wanted to see. But instead, they made this spectacle of it. And I think the American people are really rightly questioning, why does it have to be that way? What is it that you're looking for that's so important that you have to do it this way when the president has given you access to everything you have that you've asked for to date? What is happening here? It sure seems like character assassination and political persecution because he's their political rival.
Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A big win for Democrats in Washington today. The bill, dubbed the Inflation Reduction Act, is now set to become law, despite Republicans' full-throated efforts to expose what they call a bill that expands government and hikes taxes on Americans at all income levels. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with more.
In a strict party line vote, House Democrats this evening single-handedly passed a health care and climate bill dubbed the Inflation Reduction Act. Progressives claiming full victory due to their persistence.
And let's be clear, we are here because progressives held the line to turn that agenda into a House-passed piece of legislation.
Progressives praised the bill even though they didn't get everything they wanted, like government-paid childcare as well as paid family leave. And though it falls short of their climate wish list, there's still a historic amount of funding for renewable energy. Hundreds of billions of dollars for tax credits to incentivize the transition to renewable energy while cracking down on emissions by fining producers.
The Methane Emissions Reduction Program, which is a fancy term for what could be more accurately described as a tax on American natural gas.
Republicans say this will cause energy prices to go up, worsening inflation. Here's House Speaker Nancy Pelosi today acknowledging that the inflation reduction will take time to achieve.
Well, you have to get started, yes. I mean, the fact is that inflation has many causes.
But some were upset with how quickly it moved through Congress.
This is the bill, 728 pages we got from the Senate this week. Has anybody read it? Come on.
Ahead of the final vote, House members debated the bill for 3 hours, with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy giving a lengthy speech for over an hour.
So when you say that you're not going to go after every American to audit, you're not being honest. Just like you're not being honest about what you did to cause the pain to this country. And you have no plan to solve it.
A main back-and-forth dispute was over the IRS expansion.
Building a fairer tax system that will invest in workers without raising taxes on families and small businesses.
If the left will weaponize the FBI to raid President Trump's personal residence, they will surely weaponize the IRS's new 87,000 agents, many of whom will be trained in the use of deadly force.
As for health care, the government's role is expanded with this bill. Medicare will cap insulin and prescription drug costs while negotiating drug prices for a number of other drugs. Republicans argue the health care provisions will kill funding for more cures. But for Democrats, the bill is just the first step to reaching some of their more ambitious health care goals.
We have been trying for decades to prevail, to win legislation that enabled the Secretary to negotiate for lower prices.
And since this Inflation Reduction Act has passed the Senate already strictly along party lines, now we're seeing the same situation in the House, a strict party line vote. Nevertheless, it's still off to the White House for the president's signature. But President Biden is on vacation right now, so it will be at least a week until he comes back to the White House to sign it. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.